Alright guys, welcome back to First Attack. We are talking about whiff punishing, and I turned that mic a little too high. Okay, we are talking about whiff punishing, and we've basically concluded, so I just want to go over this a couple of very key important points about whiff punishing. Again, whiff punishes are just one part of footsies. If you sit there and just become a whiff punishing monster, you've basically turned yourself into a sitting duck. Because you have to throw out moves every once in a while to control your opponent from walking forward. You really have to make sure that they can't gain that space on you. But whiff punishing is very good against very buttonsy opponents. If they like to hit buttons, then you can whiff punish them all day. So it's a very delicate balance. You have to make sure that you walk forward or you take some initiative at the same time you're trying to whiff punish. So while you're playing this whiff punish game, you have to be able to transition from whiff punish to poking to walking forward to whiff punish. You've got to like just jump between the three different parts of the triangle as fast as the best you can. And again, this is really where a lot of experience comes from. Like I said, you have to know your ranges. You have to know your opponent's ranges. If you don't know your opponent's ranges, you have no ability to whiff punish them. So if you didn't know Oni has this super extremely buff like stand roundhouse or the towards roundhouse or the towards fierce, you're just going to get popped by those all day because you don't know how to avoid those. You don't know how to dodge those. So really try to get to know your opponents. Learn Abel's step kick distance, for example. Abel loves to do the step kick because that's what gets him in. He wants you to block that move. So if you memorize the range of that move, you can stand right outside it and end up whiff punishing him a lot more. In order to whiff punish properly, you really do need to know a lot about the different characters. And I consider whiff punishing level 2 of footsies. The first level is the poking, is the space controlling, because that's just hitting buttons, and people like doing that already. That's one of the first things people learn in Street Fighter, and I've repeated this over and over and over again. One of the most important things about Street Fighter is learning when not to hit buttons. So the easiest part of footsies to learn is just hitting buttons to control space. That's why I'm not doing a whole episode dedicated to it. So I've kind of jumped over from level 1. It's something that a lot of people are good at, hitting buttons. It's when you play against someone, like I played against Edma, who's a master whiff punisher, and he cheats because he uses Akuma. Can't say much, I'm a Kami player, but he uses Akuma as a great whiff punisher, and when I played him, I'm a buttonsy kind of person, so I'm hitting buttons all day, and he just swept me, like, constantly. He would even sweep my stand jab a lot of the times. So irritating. So, you know, if you don't realize what's going on, if you don't realize that's what he's doing, you're going to hit buttons all day and just get beat up. So, you know, if you can start putting whiff punishing into your game, you can start understanding when they're doing it to you, and you get a better idea of how to do it. And then level 3 of footsies is walking forward, because that's the bravest part. That's the hardest part. That's the one thing that's the most against human nature, is walking at your opponent, not blocking. They're not in any sort of delay. You're just walking at them. There's really nothing more to explain outside of the fact that that is just pure bravery. And, you know, Madge has described it to me that way, that footsies is about being brave. That's how Vi described it. Footsies is about being brave. And walking forward is such a huge part of that. It's the hardest one to learn because it's the most terrifying. But it's definitely a very, very important tactic. Lastly, I just want to mention that some games don't even really support whiff punishes. One of the reasons why I'm personally terrible at whiff punishes is because I played a lot of hyper fighting and Super Turbo. Not a lot of whiff punishing in that game. Not a lot, because every normal move is so ridiculously fast. Like, the only moves you're going to be whiff punishing are the really obvious ones, like Guile low forward. That's one of the most common ones to whiff punish. A Shoto low sweep you can whiff punish as well. Most of the time you whiff punish them with special moves, right? Like you see them whiff a sweep and then you just like scissor kick them or something like that. But a lot of games don't support whiff punishing. Injustice has whiff punish, because a lot of people have to commit to strings. So if you stay out of the string range and get them to whiff 2 moves, you get to beat them up. Marvel, there is some whiff punishing, but it's hard because everything is cancelable in Marvel. So you can see them whiff a move, and then you try to whiff punish, and they cancel into a super, and then you're like, haha, and then all of a sudden you get killed. So harder to whiff punish. Game like Guilty Gear kind of has both. Again, less whiff punishy. King of Fighters has more whiff punishes because it's definitely a lot more calculated game as well. So whiff punishing is a very key tactic in Street Fighter, but there's a lot of other games where whiff punishes are not going to be... okay, yes, exactly. ZTS said exactly right. Tekken is all about whiff punishing. In fact, a lot of the 3D games are. It's about getting them to miss. Because in Tekken games, once you start blocking, it's not a good look because it's so hard to defend in that game because there's so many high and lows. So your goal is to get them to whiff the move so you can counter punish it. So yeah, Tekken is probably the most whiff punishy game out of them all besides like Virtua Fighter and DOA. But even DOA has counters so you can let them hit you. So I would say Tekken and Virtua Fighter are probably the most whiff punishing games that there are out of all of them. And then a game like Marvel, not very much whiff punishing at all. So a game like Vampire Savior, very hard to whiff punish, for example. Because the moves just reach so far, like you're not going to get them to miss half the time. And they're all super fast, so... Alright, so that about concludes the episode I have today for whiff punishes. So, do you guys have any questions in the chat? Or if you guys think of questions later on or are watching this on YouTube, you can email us at ultrachentv@gmail.com. But if you've got any questions right now in the chat, I'll answer for like maybe another 5 minutes or something like that. If there's no questions, then we will move on to Mr. Ultra David, who will be doing an episode on the evolution of matchups. Okay, so Lovely Demon asks, how can I whiff punish Adon stand hard kick? So one of the reasons why Adon is so powerful is because that standing roundhouse is so good, and he does not move very far forward. It's very much like Cammy's standing forward kick. It's probably one of the best zoning tools, and as Adon players, you can abuse it because it is so hard to whiff punish. The only... remember how I said that, you know, as long as your moves don't get outclassed, like a Vega low strong, will just outclass everything Ryu does. So if I whiff low strong, Vega's just too far away for Ryu to even get close enough to whiff punish. Adon doesn't move very far forward. His stand roundhouse reaches super far, and it's pretty fast too, and it's got 2 hits. So it's just got active frames all day. So it's very hard to whiff punish. So your cries of how do I whiff punish this, lots of people share this. It's one of the hardest moves to whiff punish. You have to have a move like a Cammy standing roundhouse or something that reaches ridiculously far to whiff punish it properly, or a special move that hits super fast like a Balrog charge or something like that. It is a very, very difficult move to whiff punish because, like I said, lots of active frames, lots of speed, lots of range, doesn't move them very far forward. It outclasses probably 95% of the normal moves in the game, maybe even 98% of the moves in the game. So it is one of the hardest ones to whiff punish. It also hits pretty high up, so even if you try to jump it, sometimes it hits you out of the air before you get over it, but it is whiff punishable very hard. If you are Vega, for example, you can low strong counter it because your low strong reaches so far. Random Gamer Dude, no, active frames are not priority. Active frames just means that it's out there for a long time. So if you imagine, like, if you do a move and it has active frames and then stops, that's when you can start approaching it safely. So if it has a lot of active frames and you walk up to it, you get hit by one of the later active frames. But if it has less active frames, you know, it stops hitting faster. You can chase after it a little bit. So the more active frames that it has, the harder it is to whiff punish. I've always described, priority has always been this vague concept. It's one of those buzzwords in Street Fighter back when nobody really understood how it worked. They just used the word priority when a move beat out the other one. The way that I like to describe priority these days is the difference between your hitbox and your hurt box. The more that your hitbox is not covered by a hurt box, the higher priority the move is, because then you can hit them and they can't hit you. That's how I describe priority these days. So Muffin Man asks, when it comes to the footsie game as a whole, how do you know when to transition from whiff punishing to poking while maintaining space control? Experience and reading your opponent, understanding what they do. Like I said, if he's trying to whiff punish, like let's say I'm trying to whiff punish him and he starts walking forward really aggressively at me, I know I have to transition to poking all of a sudden, right? And that, of course, might get you counter hit set up if you're against someone like Vi. But it does trigger you to panic a little bit more. Sometimes if you're whiff punishing very effectively and your opponent starts getting scared to hit buttons, it's kind of like they're trying to whiff punish now, right? Because they're scared to hit buttons, so they're not going to hit any buttons. That gives you the ability to walk forward now because you've shut down their game. So now you can gain a little bit of space. Now you can get close and start poking. It's really just about reading your opponent and understanding how they're playing to know how to transition between the different footsie states. It's not something that's very teachable. It's something that you really just have to experience and learn yourself. Unless, of course, you're Madge at Sonic Hurricane, then you can study it and somehow figure it out. It's pretty crazy. Let's see, what else do we have here? Dude, I'm going to have to do one of those random Ask jchensor days where people just ask me even non-game related questions, because there's definitely a lot of non-game related questions. Oh man, you guys are just trolling me now. Oh, Melee, yeah, whiff punishing. Melee, that's another game that's huge about whiff punishing. Dashing away, getting like Marth to whiff the sword, and then dashing back in, hitting them, bouncing up to the air, then juggling and stuff like that. Melee is another huge whiff punishing game. Panda Man Anna asks when the next execution corner is. I'll do one soon again, because apparently people seem to really enjoy watching me try to do electric wind god fists and stuff like that, so I'll do another one soon. Let's see what else here. Okay, I think that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and end the episode here today. If you guys have any more questions about footsies, again, ultrachen@gmail.com. Stick around, guys. Level 3 Focus is coming up with Ultra David, and he will be going over the evolution of matchups. All right? Thanks, guys. Peace.